Welcome back to Dark Tales Shorts 101, the channel where forgotten legends, terrifying encounters, and the darkness of the unknown come to life. Tonight, we bring you two terrifying encounters connected by one chilling warning. Never whistle in the dark. One story comes from the frozen wilderness of Alaska, the other from a lonely farm surrounded by darkness. Two different people, two different places, but both discovered the same horrifying truth. Sometimes, the darkness answers back. Turn down the lights, put on your headphones, and prepare yourself for tonight's terrifying stories. The first story happened deep in the Alaska wilderness. A hunter had traveled far into the backcountry during late fall, miles from civilization, completely alone. No nearby roads, no cabins, no phone signal, just endless forest stretching into darkness beneath freezing mountain skies. The hunter had spent the entire day tracking moose trails near frozen creeks and thick tree lines. By the time night arrived, exhaustion had already settled into his body. He built a small campfire beside his tent and cooked dinner while cold wind moved through the forest around him. At first, everything felt peaceful. But the deeper the night became, the stranger the woods started to feel. Every crack of a branch sounded too close. Every shadow between the trees felt wrong. Still, he ignored the feeling. Then he made the mistake he would regret forever. Without thinking, he casually whistled into the darkness. A few seconds passed. Then, from deep within the forest, something whistled back. The hunter froze. The whistle sounded almost human, but something about it felt wrong, distorted, wet, like something trying to imitate a person. At first, he convinced himself it had to be another hunter somewhere nearby, so, like an idiot, he whistled again. This time the answer came immediately. Closer, much closer. And right after that, the entire forest went silent. No wind, no insects, no movement. Nothing. Even the sound of his own breathing suddenly felt too loud. Then came the footsteps. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Heavy footsteps moving slowly around the edge of his camp. Not walking like an animal, walking like something trying to stay hidden beyond the firelight. The hunter grabbed his flashlight and scanned the trees. Nothing, just darkness. But then, from somewhere behind him, he heard his own whistle repeated back perfectly. Same rhythm, same tone, exactly the same. That was when fear finally hit him. He grabbed his rifle and pack and started walking toward his truck parked nearly half a mile away down an old dirt trail. And that walk back became the most terrifying moment of his life. The entire time, something followed him through the woods. Whenever he stopped walking, it stopped too. Whenever he moved, it moved. Then more whistles echoed around him, one somewhere to his left, another behind him, then another farther ahead. Like multiple things were surrounding him in the darkness. At one point, he swung his flashlight into the woods and caught movement between the trees. Something tall, far taller than any normal man. Its shoulders looked unnaturally long. Its eyes reflected pale white in the darkness before disappearing behind the trees. Then suddenly, it mimicked his voice. Not words, just broken human sounds copied badly. That nearly made him panic. By the time he finally saw his truck through the trees, he was almost running. Branches snapped violently behind him. Heavy breathing echoed somewhere close in the darkness. He jumped inside the truck and slammed the door shut. Then immediately, something whistled directly outside the passenger window, right beside him. The hunter slowly turned his flashlight toward the glass and saw a tall shape standing beyond the light. Thin, barely human. Its head tilted unnaturally sideways. Its eyes reflected bright white. Then slowly, it smiled. Far too wide. The hunter started the truck and sped out of there without ever looking back. As he drove down the dirt road, something massive moved between the trees beside him for several terrifying seconds before vanishing into the darkness. He never returned for the gear he left behind. And to this day, he refuses to whistle after dark. Because sometimes, something whistles back. The second story happened far away from Alaska, near an isolated farm surrounded by fields and dense woods. An old farmer once shared this terrifying experience years later with close friends. Even speaking about it still frightened him. The farmer explained that the elders in his village always carried one warning through generations. Never whistle after sunset, because you never truly know what may answer from the darkness. But, like many young men at the time, he never believed those stories. One evening, after working late repairing fences and tending livestock, he decided to stay overnight inside an old farm shed near the edge of his property, instead of walking back home through the dark. The shed sat alone beside a thick tree line where the woods stretched for miles. No nearby houses, no lights, nothing except silence. At first, the night felt peaceful. Wind moved gently through the fields while insects chirped outside the wooden walls of the shed. The farmer laid down on a small bed beside an old lantern, trying to fall asleep. But around midnight, loneliness started getting to him. Unable to sleep, he casually began whistling to himself, just a soft tune to pass the time. Then, from somewhere beyond the tree line, something whistled back. The farmer immediately sat upright. The whistle sounded human, but wrong, distorted, stretched, unnatural. Thinking maybe someone had wandered onto his property, he grabbed his flashlight and looked through the window. Nothing. He slowly stepped outside and flashed the light across the fields multiple times. Still nothing. No people, no animals, no movement. The darkness remained completely still. Eventually, he convinced himself it was just his imagination and returned inside the shed. He locked the door, placed the flashlight beside him, and tried to sleep. That was when he heard footsteps above him. Boom, boom, boom. Heavy footsteps walking across the roof. The entire shed creaked violently. Then came scratching sounds along the walls, long, dragging scratches, like fingernails clawing through old wood. The farmer grabbed his rifle and backed into the corner of the shed. Then the whistling started again. One whistle outside the front door, another outside the back wall, another directly above him on the roof. The farmer later said it sounded like multiple creatures speaking to each other through whistles. Then suddenly, bang! Something slammed violently against the shed wall. Then another impact. Then another. Dust fell from the ceiling as the entire structure shook around him. The farmer heard clawing sounds digging into the outer wood walls, trying to get inside. Terrified, he slowly approached the door and peeked through a small crack in the wood. And that's when he saw it. A tall, thin creature standing only feet away from the shed. Its arms looked too long. Its tangled hair nearly touched the ground. It wore what looked like old, torn clothing, hanging in grey, ragged strips from its body. Its pale face reflected faintly beneath the moonlight. But its eyes... Its eyes reflected bright white in the darkness. Then another figure stepped out from the woods. Then another. Then another. There were many of them. Some climbed across the roof, some scratched the walls, some crouched silently beside the windows, and others stood motionless near the tree line watching the shed. Then one of them softly repeated the exact whistle the farmer made earlier that night. Perfectly. That nearly broke him. The farmer remained trapped inside the shed, clutching his rifle while those things pounded on the walls and crawled across the roof for the rest of the night. At one point, he heard something whisper softly outside the door. Not words, just broken human sounds trying to imitate speech. And then, all at once, every creature outside began whistling together. The farmer hid inside the shed until sunrise, too terrified to move. And the moment sunlight touched the field, everything stopped. No footsteps, no whistles, no scratching, nothing. When he finally stepped outside, deep claw marks covered the walls. Long scratches stretched across the roof, and footprints surrounded the shed in every direction. But whatever surrounded him that night was gone. To this day, both men refuse to whistle after dark. And maybe you shouldn't either. Because sometimes the darkness listens, and sometimes it answers back. Thank you for listening to tonight's terrifying stories here on Dark Tales Shorts 101. If you enjoyed tonight's cinematic horror encounter, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another terrifying journey into the unknown. Until next time, stay safe, stay alert, and stay out of the darkness.